In the Gears of War universe, you may have seen my Locust Horde lore videos, but now it's time for us to dive into the quote-unquote successors of the Locust Horde, the Swarm, who appeared 25 years after the end of the Locust War. As always, I'm your host Abz, and welcome to another lore video on one of your favourite gaming franchises. Make sure to chainsaw your way through that like button, and consider subscribing if you do enjoy the video for more similar content like this. Now, to understand the Swarm, we have to go backwards in the Gears timeline, right back to the Locust's origins. The creator of the Locust Horde, Dr. Niall Sampson, genetically engineered the Locust to be able to withstand generational conflict. Their DNA was designed with the ability to evolve in order to adapt to new environmental conditions. This genetic trait was triggered in 17 AE, so 17 years after Emergence Day, when the emotion countermeasure weapon was activated, a targeted radiation device aimed at killing cells colonized by emotion. The Locust were susceptible to the emotion countermeasure due to emotion being in their genetic code. So the device supposedly killed off the Locust and the Lambent, marking the end of the Locust War. But before the Locust could be killed, the emotion residing in their cells were expelled from their bodies and crystallized to form an impenetrable cocoon shell. Inside the shells, the Locust Horde evolved into scions, 25 years after their hibernation, but this isn't till later on in the timeline, so we'll get back to that. With the war finally won, the Cog army initially intended to destroy the bodies of their fallen enemies via burning. This ultimately became impossible, as all of the Locust bodies had somehow become encased in an incredibly dense crystalline structure composed of emotion that protected their remains. Therefore, the Cog were unable to destroy the remains, and so the newly reformed coalition of ordered governments decided to dispose of them in several underground caverns and abandoned facilities that they had converted into burial sites. Despite general belief that the Locust Horde was gone forever, they had actually managed to survive the emotion countermeasure by going into hibernation within their crystalline shells over the next 25 years in the burial sites. Of course, during these 25 years, humanity didn't stand still. The humans of Sera began to rebuild their civilization, finding means to repopulate their people, create settlements, and advance their technology. In 42 AE, so 42 years after Emergence Day, which was 25 years after the Locust War had ended, the Locust finally re-emerged and hatched from their cocoons. The Locust drones grew in size and strength and outgrew their original scales, now becoming known as the Scions. The Scions were much less in numbers though, compared to the sheer amount of Locust drones that there used to be in the Horde. Other hollow creatures began to re-emerge as well, such as the newly evolved Brumak. However, the Locusts realised that they were still low in numbers and were still missing a queen, because a queen is needed to help them for growth and guidance. Now, by means unknown as of creating this video, the Scions figured out a way to use biological masses produced in the burial sites to connect living creatures into a neural biological network and transform them into a whole new species that would follow their commands. These burial sites would become strongholds known as hives. Snatchers were also created to capture humans and put them in swarm pods within a hive where they would undergo the transformation process. The former Locust Queen Mirror, with her consciousness still alive within the hive mind, was able to somewhat lead the swarm, but relied on the Speaker to lead the army and find her long-lost daughter, Reina Diaz, in order to inhabit her body and become queen again for the swarm. The swarm then began to kidnap outsiders, patrolling Gears and other survivors outside the controlled, closed-off settlements that the coalition set up. The coalition of ordered governments accused the outsiders, a group of humans formed from the stranded who refused to live in Cog jurisdiction, of stealing their people, which, as we know, wasn't the case. It turns out that the Swarm were responsible for these kidnappings. The idea of the Swarm existed as early as Epic Games' original version of Gears of War 4. At least one Swarm monster type existed in this version. The coalition retained the name of the Swarm, but the nature of the faction itself changed between developers. The original idea for the Swarm was that some of the Locust avoided the emotion countermeasure and spent 25 years in hiding to rebuild their army, despite the fact that some Locust actually did manage to avoid the emotion countermeasure. This idea was scrapped due to it lacking originality and being too repetitive of the Locust surviving the 3 previous games. Rod Ferguson explained that there needed to be a reason for the Locust surviving in order to explore more of the series, and so it was written that Locust had evolved when exposed to the emulsion countermeasure. Now that is the origins and backstory behind the Swarm faction explained. Make sure to subscribe and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss another lore video. Also, a very special thank you as always to the YouTube channel members Jason, GearsManiac06 and Slippery Man Gravy for helping support the channel. You can also become a member of the channel by pressing the join button and joining our ever growing community. Thank you very much for watching. I'm your host Abz, and I'll catch you next time.